Welcome to the Talent Equals podcast. I'm your host, William Laitinen. Thank you for joining us again. In today's episode, we're talking about life insurance. Now, wait. I know you may be thinking, why would I listen to a show about life insurance? It's not exactly interesting, life insurance. And for the most part, you're right. But this is a different one because I have the guests of an insurtech who I've been following, and I think probably doing the most interesting work when it comes to marketing and communicating a product. And they're doing it in life insurance. I have the co-founders, Phil Zeidler and Andy Knott of DeadHappy. DeadHappy are doing something altogether different. They are taking what is otherwise a very boring, very conventional sector of life insurance, and they are transforming it into something cool. They're actually talking about death, putting it front and center in their name. They're then rethinking, how can we serve a set of customers in a truly unique way? Well, they do that by creating something called death wishes. And then they've also rethought the entire way that you sign up for life insurance, making a simple set of questions really easy to answer, and then delivering a highly flexible product which actually delivers what the customer wants. So you know what? It's a great chat. We learn how you can walk a more adventurous road of creativity. And so if you're interested in making your business more authentically you, or more authentically who your customers are, then this is an episode for you to invest in. I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you on the other side. Phil and Andy, welcome to Talent Equals. Thanks for joining us.
Hi.
Hi, nice to be here.
Fantastic. Well, gentlemen, I've wanted you on the show because I've continually been enjoying the marketing and the messaging and the story that is DeadHappy. It's got to be one of the funnest and engaging insurance brands that I've seen in the market. And so I'm really excited to sort of have a chat with you about the development of DeadHappy and your relationship as founders and sort of where the business is going. So, but for those of you out there who haven't been as actively stalking DeadHappy as I have been, I would be sort of, maybe you could just tell us, well, first of all, who you guys are and what DeadHappy is all about.
Sure. Let me kick off and Andy will fill in all the gaps I miss. Yeah, so Phil Zeidler, obviously one of the co-founders of DeadHappy, background in insurance, very much so. Set up a few different insurance businesses a long time ago, the last of which was a big white labeling business called Junction. Most people won't know the name of Junction, but if you buy motor and home insurance from the likes of banks, building societies, M&S, post office, etc., you're buying it on a white label basis from the business I set up. So very much steeped in insurance background. Done a few different things with my life. Haven't been in insurance forever, but never done anything in life insurance until the DeadHappy opportunity came along. So that's core background. In terms of, I guess my view of why DeadHappy, why I was keen to do DeadHappy, I've got a very personal element to it. So way back in 2005, when I was a very fit, young, healthy 30-plus-year-old, I had a very unexpected near-death experience. I had an infection. It was, and I actually turned into, went into septic shock, body shut down, and I ended up on intensive care. And I was in a coma for a week or so. Obviously something I don't remember. And the truth is, if you go through an experience like that, I had a wife, a lovely wife. She told me to say that, and two delightful children who were aged 2 and 4. It does make you think, what would have happened if I died? And I had life insurance and I had a will and all the rest of it, but I went and checked them and I wanted to change them and I want to do different things, as you do when something like that happens. And I couldn't, or I certainly couldn't very easily. And that was a real frustration from a customer perspective. As someone who'd been in the insurance space all this time and I was used to flexibility, I didn't understand why I couldn't just actually adjust the products that I had to meet my needs. So that was a real frustration. And was something, in truth, as frustrating as I did, I thought about and I spoke to a few people, but didn't do much about. All the way up until I met Andy, which was in 2013.
That's my bit, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes, so Andy, I'm obviously co-founder as well. I guess my story started, way back 10 years ago, I suppose. When I have sort of weird ideas, I tend to buy domain names. And I found out sort of recently that they act as sort of like a bookmarking thing for me. So I have a weird idea, buy a domain name, and I leave it there. And every year comes around, and I have to re-register it. So I have to actually sort of pay money to keep it. And it kind of works as an idea and a culling sort of idea culling thing as well. So that stuff happened, and then obviously the DeadHappy.com domain name was there. So I thought, there's definitely something in that. And I suppose not a similar experience to Phil, but I couldn't get life insurance no matter how hard I tried because of actually mental health reasons. So I've had depression for the last 25 years. I've been on medication for 25 years, and I just hadn't been able to get life insurance. And so the pressure of not being able to get life insurance combined with the pressure of my lovely wife going at me to get life insurance sort of triggered the thing that I thought, I think it can probably be done better. I didn't really understand why I couldn't have it, because I'm not suicidal, I'm not massively weird, only a little bit.
No more than normal. There you go.
No more than normal. And it just didn't make sense. It just didn't make sense at all. So I asked a mate of mine if he knew anyone that knew anything about insurance, anything about life insurance, and he said, yeah, he does. He knows this guy. He's brilliant. He's clever, smart, intelligent. Unfortunately, that guy was busy, so I got introduced to Phil instead. And then we hooked up at Costa in Lutterworth, I think it was, and it was like when sort of stars align in a way. I think he was. I mean, he's much further ahead in the thinking in terms of what insurance should be, and then I had this sort of weird idea for a brand, and it kind of aligned, and we played around with it, didn't we, for a few years, I guess, and it got to a point where it's like, what, we keep coming back and we keep getting really excited about it, so we've got to do it. We've got to do something about it, and then that's when our sort of journey started.
So it's interesting. So I hear in the similarities there that there were two kind of fundamental needs that you both had as customers in a way.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're both quite intense topic though, really. I mean, around death, like death being the catalyst for creation in this instance, is like you're both thinking about like your own mortality and then trying to figure out how you can sort of fill your own requirement that you had. And I think that's actually what I find quite interesting about life insurance, because everybody needs it, right? Everybody could use it or benefit from it, because we're all going to die at some point. It's just our perception of that mortality, our perception of that thing occurring, which really kind of drives the need for it. So, and that's in that moment that I suppose I'd like to explore with you my next question around sort of the sort of sexiness of insurance, because so many the big organizations out there have got life insurance products, right? You can go pretty much any insurer and buy a life insurance product. And so but it tends to be a very bland, very corporate type experience, right? But you guys have gone an entirely different way with DeadHappy. You have a skull, which and you have this kind of, that it's in the name, dead, right? So these are things that are not normal things to do in insurance when it comes to life insurance. I mean, they don't even call it death insurance, they call it life insurance. So yeah, and so that's the question I suppose I get to is, how are you making insurance sexy? And did you go to make insurance sexy with DeadHappy?
I think it's just a pretty selfish thing for, I think, both Phil and I. It's just something we wanted. I wanted to get life insurance, and I wanted to get it in a certain way. I think Phil's exactly the same. So, in essence, it's a very sort of selfish project or a selfish company. So,
yeah, I think, and the way I think, I think, I'll be honest with you, I don't think anyone can ever make insurance sexy.
No.
I think, so it might be, it's sexy, obviously increasingly to investors and, the insurtech and all the rest of it. But from a customer's perspective, you're never going to, and I don't think we aspire to make it sexy, because that's just a bit weird. But what we do aspire to do is to make it simple and easy. And I guess that's probably the reflection, precisely as Andy just said. If I want to buy something, and I recognise that I'm not in our, that sort of core millennial bracket, which is where most people need life insurance. When do you need life insurance? It's when you have big commitments like a mortgage or long-term partner or children, etc. And that tends to be that sort of 25 to 40-year-old. That's the first time you sort of think about buying it. And then you look at people that you say, well, how do you want to buy a product? Do you, does it, well, and I do include myself in here, do I want to just be able to go online and just buy something, in my own time, whenever I feel like it, not have to speak to someone, or do I want to go out and visit someone, or have, a long phone call with someone, getting, intimate details of my life? It's a pretty obvious answer in my mind. I have no interest in speaking to someone if I don't have to. And the truth is, life insurance, and this is the key thing, life insurance is a really, really simple product. You buy it, you buy a certain amount of cover, and if you die, it pays out. If you don't die, it doesn't. It is one of the simplest products, like insurance products, available. So I think our real frustration, certainly my frustration, and I'm talking about it from the insurance product perspective, is it any wonder that 8.5 million people who have a need for protection don't have it? There's a huge protection gap. The industry's talked about it forever, not done anything about it. Well, it seems pretty obvious to me that part of the problem is it's really dull. It doesn't engage people. It's, and it takes forever. Throwing in it, actually, the way they price it, quite expensive. You've got the holy trinity there. But what we can do and what we've done, and some of the stuff that certainly we developed over time, of outside of the insurance product. The insurance product we're delighted with. I think it's a brilliant product. It's far better for the customer. But it's a death wishes platform, and how we get people to emotionally engage and think about the product. If anything could be sexy, for me, that's the sexy bit. And I have to say, and just to be really clear, begrudgingly, obviously, this is where Andy's thinking around the customer and perception of something was fundamental in designing the whole of the death wish sort of process, really.
Thanks, Phil. I'll pay you later.
Well, it's interesting, because you say it can't be sexy, and I mean, let's define what I mean by sexy. I mean, an appealing product that people feel drawn to and want to be engaging with, right? And I think you've actually done a lot of that, and I'm glad you mentioned about the death wishes, because I think it's sort of that's a really interesting product, the way it's described, the way it's called, and how that may actually engage with customers. So, I mean, Phil, you are the insurance exec as such, and Andy, you're the marketer, right? So maybe I get you to talk to that as well then. I mean, do you think it can, like the way you've created these death wishes, can it be sexy? Can we engage customers in making insurance a product they really want and they want to keep and is fun?
Yeah, I think the death wishes could enable that. I mean, to Phil's point there, because I mean, insurance in itself is frustrating, annoying. It's a really annoying purchase. And we kind of describe life insurance as the bet you don't want to win, because it is a bet. We are all going to die. We just don't know when. So I guess we're just honest with it. But it is what it is. I think with the way marketing's going in life insurance, it feels as if there was a core product and then it's been wrapped in layers and layers of features and functionality and different things, level term and decreasing and connected to your mortgage and all those sorts of things. And then it's been handed over to some marketing guys and they're told, right, sell that. And it's a really tough job. And I think that's probably why you kind of see the advertising is where it is. I mean, I personally find it really patronizing, the way life insurance is advertised at the moment. There's a bit of scaremongering or guilt tripping in there. And I think people are a bit more intelligent than that. But I guess coming back to the point, so we know that with life insurance, and we are doing some sexy stuff to it, the ability to flex up and down, which no one's ever done before, ability to extend the guarantee, sort of like annual check-ins. So they're all quite innovative things. But what we agreed on was that wasn't enough. It had to have some other utility involved in it. It had to have something like the death wishes to really bring it to life.
Tell us what about these death wishes, because I think that's a very interesting component of the product at DeadHappy. And how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, well, effectively they're like an expression of wish. So they're what you want to happen when you die. It's as simple as that, and it can be anything. It can be defining your own funeral, or it can be giving money or paying off the mortgage, kind of anything you want. And I guess the really interesting thing for us, as I always said, is that we're not actually interested in the death part. That's kind of, it is what it is. It's the ability to create, I hate this word legacy, but this thing in the future that you can make a difference, a real difference to people's lives with these death wishes. So let's get the death bit out of the way. The death wishes can fuel some amazing things for other people, I guess.
Do you have any examples of some of the death wishes?
Really
yeah, I mean, I know I'm interested in this because I think we talked about this as well, Phil, about some of the death wishes you guys have that have come through from customers. Would you be able to sort of share any that some of the customers have already put together that you think sort of exemplify what could be done and how you guys help that happen?
Yeah, it's there's a few sweary ones there, isn't there? We're about to swear on here.
We're absolutely fine. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'll give a few of my favorites. I think that the essence, as Andy described, the essence of this thing is it's allowing the customer to tailor exactly what they want to happen and be in control, precisely says beyond that death, of what some stuff that happens, and make some really amazing things happen. So I love, and I do get quite, emotional when I think about some of these things that our customers have come up with, whether it's sending a bouquet of the favorite flowers to their partner on the anniversary of their death so that they feel they're never going to be forgotten. You can have, one of our favorites is one of the most popular ones is you can send your ashes into space so that, your children or grandchildren, the olds all look up and, grandpa's up there in the sky. Well, you really are up there in the sky. You can have, I think Dominic, who's he was the third man into the business, he's I'm not sure whether it was his idea, but put out this death wish around having a bronze statue of yourself made, so no one will ever forget you. And the point about all of these examples is that you can do anything, and there are some rude ones. There are some people who have all sorts of different things. But they're creative about it, and they're bespoke about it. And there's a real emotional connection. And if I'd said to you, William, that we've developed a way of getting an emotional connection to a life insurance product, you'd have thought I'd be bonkers. But actually, I think that's what the Death Wish platform allows. And it's hugely powerful.
I think that also as well, just like an example of being able to buy your son a new pair of football boots every season to go and play football. it comes from you as from. I think stuff. So it's not the big things. It's just the little attachments, the little emotional things that you can create. I think are amazing. And we have a TV at the work, and we do have the death wishes come on the screen every when they're made and they go and stuff. And it is a privilege to be able to see them, read them. It is amazing.
And so,
it's because also they're not what you think in a way. They're just the messaging is just so personal. It's brilliant.
That's hyper personalized service. I mean, So I understand it. I mean, some beautiful ones there, like buying football boots. I mean, who wouldn't be touched by that? I mean, I have 3 children, and the idea that if I was to die before I was able to see them through all of their football seasons, that having them boots arrive every season, that is beautiful. That is really, really lovely. Is this, so I understand it, that the customer makes the death wish through the platform, and how does that again? Are you guys helping to action that, or is that then just passed on to the family to help and you give them the money to action that? How does that sort of practically work?
So currently, they act like an expression of wish, like a codicil to the will. So they aren't legally binding. And as you say, we do is we contact the next of kin, we lay out the death wishes, and then we will offer to make those happen. So we will facilitate them. And it doesn't take a genius to see that there's a huge opportunity for us in a provision of death services. Is ultimately where we get to with the business as we grow. So because we think it's really important, if we can, to make these things happen, there is a plan to make these things actually legally binding, hopefully using some of the blockchain, because if we could put the death wishes on the blockchain, we can guarantee the authenticity of the wish and so forth, and then they potentially can meet the criteria of being effectively in trust. And at that stage, then obviously it's more certain, and we can actually then very much say, well, they don't have to use us, but we can facilitate these things. And that's certainly a part of the bigger picture for us, because ultimately that's the moment of truth. Selling life insurance in itself is not the most edifying thing, but actually making these things happen, making these people's wishes happen, is for us probably the most important part of all of this. So, and it's something that we very much look forward to building on, and no doubt creating hundreds and hundreds of wonderful stories.
It gets me thinking, really, that as a form of insurance, you said it's the simplest product, but I suppose it's also one of the most meaningful or purpose-filled products potentially as well. What do you think about that? And was that sort of what? I mean, you both shared very personal stories as well. One a near-death experience, the other with mental health conditions which were stopping you from getting the cover that you need. These are like really like human, like just meaningful stories. It's not like I'm insuring my car that I'm going to get rid of in 3 years. So yeah, I just wonder, is that something you thought about, or you're continually thinking about this purpose and how that serves you and the business?
Oh, I think so, very much so. I mean, we talk about this. The product is, for us, we often call it's the ultimate gift of love, because it's one of the most selfless things you can do. Buying an insurance product, generally, you are the beneficiary of the insurance product. In this instance, clearly you are not, because you have to be dead. So, in that sense, but as you've sort of hit, you struck upon, it is possibly the most important, you might argue, of insurance products, because insurance is there to deal with catastrophe. There isn't much bigger catastrophe than you dying in your own world, for sure, and probably in the world of your loved ones. It can't ever, it doesn't solve the problem. Unfortunately, you have still died, and we can't change that fact, but we can make life a whole lot better and a whole lot easier by doing what we're doing. And so I guess we are quite driven, and probably one of the biggest triggers for actually doing something, getting the business set up, was realizing the number of people out there who just have no cover whatsoever. And come back to that concept that literally every day hundreds of people die, leaving their loved ones in a obviously a terrible state.
Yeah.
That's right. Also with the whole will process, I remember getting a will done near where I was, and I downloaded it off the internet, and I tried to make sense of it, tried to understand what it was talking about. I think I did it, and then I had to go to an office somewhere go into a room with this guy I've never met before. Then I signed it, he signed it, and then I went home and stuck it in the back of the filing cabinet. And it's sort of like, it's like, wow, is that it? Is that really? Okay, I've got a will now, but it's got to be better than that, surely. Yeah. It's got to be. That is absolutely rubbish. And so that, with the death wishes there, they combined into the life insurance. We want people to be able to make changes whenever they want because life changes. Kids grow up. We want different things at different times. So to be able to change a will or your death wishes or your life insurance at any point during your life days, you should be able to do. And you can't.
You can with us.
Yeah.
Well, I want to get through to it, because I mean, people listening to this, I don't want them to be mistaken that DeadHappy is just a fancy sales play, and you've got this, because you've also done some pretty innovative things with the actual pricing and how you actually get your product, your policy. You can do it damn quick, right? So, and I suppose that leads me on to my next sort of, kind of question really about product innovation and marketing, because you've got like the experienced insurance guy, Phil, keep calling you that, I'm sorry, and then we got the cool marketer.
I hate that as well.
No, but seriously, I ask because I know you've got this really, really cool way of actually signing up. So tell us about the innovation that you're creating with DeadHappy as well.
I mean, genuinely, actually what we've done is not hugely innovative. I really believe that. All we've done is what I think is common sense and really mirrors what you would expect of every other normal general insurance product. So, traditionally life insurance is sold for long fixed term policies. The average length in the UK is 23 years. Now, if you ask why that is, most will say, oh, it's related to the length of mortgage or something like that. But we just ask the question, well, why is it that long? No one buys products, any other product for that length of time. Even if you're buying a mortgage, you buy a deal for 2 years, 3 years, whatever. So it doesn't really make sense, actually. So you buy that. So first of all, they buy it sell it for a very long period of time. The second bit is it's inflexible, and we've touched on that already. So you can't change it. So as your needs change over time, you can't do anything about it. And the third bit that they do, which is again unusual for insurance, is they price it on a level term. So if you're paying £30 a month, month one, you're paying £30 a month at the end of your 25 years. So they tell you that's just so you've got certainty. But it doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out that your risk of dying is obviously a lot lower when you're younger than when you're older. So you're overpaying for that product for the first 10, 15 years, and then underpaying for the last 10 years. Well, this is fundamentally and very evidently not good for the customer. And the reason being, first of all, the statistics are the majority of customers cancel those policies after 8 years. Why do they cancel them? Well, they fail to meet their needs because their needs have changed and you can't change the product. And all of those things were real triggers for us. So we said, well, every other insurance policy, you buy it, you pay based on your risk today, not your future risk. You can change it, so it can flex. If you change your car, change your house, you just change it. You don't have to cancel the policy and start again. And you buy it typically for a year. So that's actually what we set out with life insurance. Flexible, price based on your age today. The only difference we recognised is with life insurance, you do need a bit of a longer guarantee, because if you get a nasty disease like a lung cancer or something like that, it doesn't necessarily kill you straight away. Hopefully it won't kill you at all, but and so you need a guarantee that if you got to an annual renewal, as an insurer is going to turn around and say, oh, sorry, we're not going to insure you anymore because you've now got lung cancer. So you need to give them a guarantee of cover. We actually started out with 5 years, and ultimately customers told us it wasn't quite long enough. So we've ended up with a 10-year guarantee. And the reason it's 10 years is because statistically, if you contract something like a lung cancer, it's going to kill you within that 10-year period. If it hasn't killed you after 10 years, you'll probably survive. And if there is a clever bit, what we've done is that 10-year guarantee, you can extend every year. So this is the other bit that, again, every other insurance does, life insurance doesn't. We speak to the customer every year and say, hey, that life insurance policy you bought and those death wishes that you've got, are they all still relevant? Are you happy with them? Do you need to increase them, decrease them, whatever? And then what we also do is you say, well, we've got 9 years left on your guarantee. Do you want to extend it back out to 10 years? So it's a rolling 10-year guarantee. So this policy is completely flexible and works with you and can work with you forever. And that just, and all of that stuff is very standard, normal behavior for all other products. And I often say, William, that if I came, if I went to, VC backers and said, I've got a brilliant new health insurance product where I'm going to sell it for a 25-year term, I'm going to fix the price based on your average age over those 25 years. So it'll be quite a lot more expensive and fix the cover. But it'll make us loads of money because that's actually what life insurance does. No one would buy it. But that's what happens currently in life insurance, and that's all we've done is we've just said, look, let's work this out. Let's apply some focus on what the customers actually wants and needs, and make it flexible and so forth. And it is radically different from everything else that's out there. But the thinking isn't, it's not rocket science for sure.
We've done that with the question set as well. So for me, that was one of the most enjoyable things when we started, is getting the 100 questions that life insurance companies usually ask you, and then sort of diving into the detail a bit, being a bit childish about it. So why this, why that, and actually kind of work out that you look at the question set and there's maybe 40 questions to go, well, to answer those you would have had to have seen a doctor. So we could say, have you seen the doctor in the last 2 years? If it's yes, then we can go with it. But if it's no, we can skip a massive chunk out and just move on to the next question. So it's not as if we're sort of underwriting on just poor small questions. We're just being smart in the way we ask the questions, and realizing that we don't need a load of data. We just need the bare minimum.
I think that's a really good point. It's exactly the design and the language we use in the questions are intended to be just simplified, and that's something that I suppose a lot of people have been calling for, simplification and avoidance of jargon, and products like ours deliver. I think the other thing, the reason why, to your particular question, why can we do it in such a short period of time? 4 questions. How can we deliver it in 4 questions? Well, a big driver is if you're taking a 25-year bet, that's a hell of a long bet. And so the insurers want as much information as possible. Because we're only taking a 10-year bet and then rolling it forward, we don't need anywhere near as much information, because it's exponentially, all this hereditary stuff. Why are you asking a 25-year-old, you're insuring them until they're 35, or even a 35-year-old to 45, about stuff that generally doesn't impact people until they're in their 60s? You don't need to know it. What we do have is the ability, which no other, because they don't engage with their customer, which is just insane, is we just ask customers more questions each year. So if there comes a point that maybe it's age triggered, where we just need to understand a little bit about their family history, well, we've got the opportunity of doing that at the refresh process. That's another one of the ways that we've been able to really shorten that onboarding process and make it relatively pain-free for customers.
So let's talk about customer voice then again a little bit. So you take Trustpilot and Facebook reviews, and they're coming in quite regularly? Are you getting sort of like a large volume of that? And how do you go out and look at that information? Do you have a team that are dedicated to pulling that information and then feeding that back into the process?
Well, I suppose we have, the way the company's set up, we have what we call their honchos, which are like a customer support team. And their job is to effectively look after the customers. So their sole job is to help these people get insurance. And even if they have to fight, they're tasked with fighting against everyone else in the business to make it happen. So they can come up to Phil and I and say, you sort this fucking thing out, because this customer wants this and it's a problem, so you've got to get it sorted. So this is how we sort of set them up. And they're constantly on Facebook, sort of going through comments and stuff. So we pick up a lot of signals about what's not quite right, what's wrong, what we need to maybe improve on, what messaging isn't quite right. So yeah, that's how we. Yeah,
and you chose the name Honcho. You call them all Honcho for a specific reason, right?
Honchos, yeah.
Why did you call them that?
I have no idea.
That was definitely Dominic's idea. I know. Yeah. I just want to build on that, because I think there's a good example of how that's worked, and I think worked something that's really important. And it was something that we hadn't necessarily sold on coming in, but Andy mentioned around access, access for life insurance to mental health for people with mental health conditions. So when we launched, we had a lot of people who were being declined because they had all this typical declaration. I think 30% of people have some sort of
third,
third of people have a mental health condition, and it might be
probably far more. They just don't call it that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so they're anxiety, depression, whatever it might be. And this is one of the big things that the honchos were hearing and saying, well, look, this is a problem, because actually at the moment, we aren't making it easy for these people to get covered. So we took all the evidence, and we literally had huge amounts. I don't know how much. We presented a big pack of evidence from customers describing, what they had in terms of what they were declaring and their issues, and said, look, why, we took it to the insurer and said, why can't we get these guys insured? Because let's be really clear, these people are not suicidal. We're not talking about people who are, and there is this classic moral risk. We get that with life insurance, that if someone is genuinely suicidal, they might think, oh, right, well, I'm going to go and get some life insurance and then do the deed, and my family's set up. So every life insurer, and we're no different, excludes suicide for the first typically year for that reason. That sort of is logical. But we had an opportunity, because of our construct, to change the approach to the people with mental health conditions. Because what happens with every other policy is because it's fixed, because they don't speak to customers, and they say, well, we've got to be able to cover people for suicide after a period. So typically after a year, they automatically include suicide as a risk. But then anyone who's declared a mental health condition, they make it incredibly difficult for them to get the cover, even though they're not in truth suicidal. But the inflexibility of the product demanded this. So we took it to the insurers and said, well, look, we speak to the customer every year. So we can, if they've declared a mental health condition, everyone's excluded for suicide, and they're telling us they're quite happy to always have suicide excluded. They just want cover, because they might be run over by a bus. They might get cancer. They might die of something. They just want life insurance. And if you're, and so we've got the ability to speak to that customer every year and say, hey, tell us about those mental health conditions. Do you want to be covered for suicide or not? If you don't, fine, we'll carry on excluding it, and you can still get cover, and you've got no loadings, no extra questions to answer. It's simple. And if you do want the cover for suicide, then we just need to go into more detail. And that is an illustration of that's come directly from, and it was a very high amount of noise directly from the customer that allowed us to, and we convinced the insurer to say, look, this version of the product we should allow anyone declaring a mental health condition to have cover without any extra questions at normal terms. And then we will then continue to exclude suicide until such time as they want it otherwise, and we ask more questions. And that has, I think, is a really good example of listening to that customer and delivering something they absolutely want and demand.
That is a really elegant solution, a simple, elegant solution to an absolute need.
But it's really simple as well, isn't it? I don't care. I'm not going to keep it off the policy. I don't care about it. It's simple. It really is. But for some
being
reason,
depressed, shouldn't be an exclusion to whether or not you can actually be covered, as you said, to other unknown situations that may occur to you, like being hit by a bus or by developing a terminal illness. Absolutely. But I hear in that the key to it is being in communication with your customer. And I know my own experience of having life insurance is that I get a letter through, and the letter says I have to write in. So the way that you're keeping in contact with your customers, you're just using modern methodology, right? They're signing up online. You've got their email. You can be in a communication with them. They've got these death wishes, so they're already engaged with the platform and the way that you're operating. And then you're bringing in modern, like, kind of marketing methods. I have been through your process, by the way, in sort of trying to sign up, and I got kind of sequence of emails, which I presume were sort of email sequenced and were coming through a system, which is a modern sales marketing methodology, which I thought was actually very, very well done. And it was very tailored with the sort of the DeadHappy marketing voice, which also I appreciated. So I sort of think that there is something to be said about elegance in innovation, doing something smart but simple.
And focusing on the little things as well. It's really just the bits about the emails. So just make sure that there's certain things in there that people will probably just skip over in a company. Will just it's fine, just get it out. Just craft everything. Just make sure it's all perfect or just all right. I think it's adding up those little things make a hell of a difference.
Yeah. The thing that I really value, well, there are many things, but one of the things that I really value around what Andy does, and just something that I miss, is that he's crafted this whole tone of voice, the whole of the attitude in DeadHappy, the whole of because it's it is about it's recognizing this is how. And I think the phrase we often used was, it's how, if you're down at the pub chatting to a mate, that's how you want to communicate. Because why wouldn't you? There's no need to be stuffy and formal with this stuff. Deal with it, and the way that, and people really value that, and they really appreciate it. And it's not trying to be too mate. We're not trying to be their best mate or anything like that. But it's using humour appropriately, because everyone, likes to smile. And humour is a really good and useful tool to deal with a difficult topic, of course. And it's use of that all the way through, right down to you talked about the detail. If you've ever read any of our, and you probably haven't, but it illustrates the point very well. Have a look at the footer on our emails. Very few people do, but when you do, I guarantee it'll make you laugh. And that's the level of detail that we get to in making sure that our tone of voice goes all the way through the experience. And I think it's one of the things I'm most proud of.
So how does that happen? How does that culture of detail happen? Because that's not easy. So you've got to have a certain attitude. You've got to have an openness. So how does that work inside the team?
I mean, my response is I just think it's because we care. We care a lot. So you're right. And especially when you're growing and, there's a lot going on, and it will be easy just to skip over this stuff. And, we don't get it right 100% of the time. Of course we don't. But I absolutely know, and I'm probably guilty of almost just accepting I know that, and it'll be Andy, and then we have many other brilliant people within this space, like Eddie, who sort of heads up our brand stuff. They will come round and review all of the things that have been, recent developments and updates, the rest of it, and they'll just say, actually, guys, look, this isn't working over here. This isn't right. This doesn't fit from a customer perspective, this doesn't flow well. We've lost the, some of the attitude here, or whatever it might be. So it's just a constant review. I think the end is it has to be part of your DNA. It doesn't stop us doing stuff, and that's really important, and it could do. It's this balance of just going out, getting stuff done, recognizing you're not going to get it all right, and then just reflecting and reviewing and being disciplined about making sure we do. That would be my view.
Yeah, but coupled with that is trying to instill our values through everyone. So, there is some reviewing stuff, but a lot of the stuff is just done because people have started to understand, are getting to grips with the tone of voice and understand it, and understanding attitude, and it all comes out with the company values. It's all bubbling underneath, so that people can go away and be very agile and autonomous about what they do, and so they can, write an ad, whatever, and send it out, and it'll be pretty well there.
So tell us about your values then. That's something I'd be very interested to hear about. Right? Do you have company values that you sort of talk about, or how do they work?
I'll share a couple of mine. I mean, we have 5 company values, and we do a lot of time and effort in making sure that people fit. This is how we interview to values, rather than, because you can teach people to do stuff, you can't teach people how to be. So, we're a startup, so we've, for example, one of the things we look for, as everyone I guess does, is people who are self-starters, autonomous, and all the rest of it. And the way we describe it in our values is, you're not a child. So we don't tell you what time to get up in the morning, what to get dressed, what to have for breakfast, So we're not going to tell you what to do when you come into work. You've got to take responsibility for yourself and just do it. And that brings with you some brilliant privileges. So we don't have any working hours, set working hours or holidays or anything like that. We say, look, you can work all of that stuff out yourselves. We don't mind. You can take as much holiday as you like. Just get the job done. You're an adult, you can work that out. We'll support you, and whatever support you need, come and ask. Again, if you need help, you're an adult, just go and ask. That's what it's all about. So that would be one example, but that's one of our core values.
Don't be a child.
Exactly.
I think it's you're not a fucking child.
You're not you're not a fucking child. Okay. Yeah.
Because it's more childish to say that.
Yeah. One of my other favorite ones, which I know always raises a few eyebrows, is none of us know what we're doing. And what we mean by that is, it doesn't matter how experienced you are, how many times you've been around the block. No one's right all the time. No one's got the divine right. And we passionately believe that the collective contribution from everyone, from their different perspectives, and collaboration will deliver a better outcome than someone from on high dictating a direction or a route or whatever. So the articulation of because none of us have done this before. I've done. I'm one of the oldest in the business. I've definitely done a lot of stuff in my life, but I've never set up a digital life insurance business. So I don't know all the answers for sure, as I regularly demonstrate. And often my view is turned around. But that's a really important cultural bit, because in many businesses, people, I think the phrase is hippo. People defer to the highest paid person in the room. That hierarchy of, because they're the, most senior person, they must be right. So that's what we mean by that value. None of us know what we're doing. Everyone can have a good idea. We've got to work collaboratively and collectively work to, and the best thoughts and the best way forward will emerge from all of that.
So I've got, so far, you're not a fucking child, and none of us knew what we're doing. I've got to say, these are so far some of them. So I mean, they underpin them. We have like action and being responsible for action. That's like the child component, and then you have the second part, which I hear as like humility. None of us know what we're doing, so let's all be humble here.
Yeah, and it's okay to fail. But don't do it often. Don't do this. Don't do it twice. But it's all right to fail, because it is effectively, we can do something, we can get it wrong, we can learn, we can more or less, in a lot of cases, we can just roll back quite quickly to where we were. And we learn. It is that.
And so what's the next ones? I'm intrigued to hear the next ones now.
Can't
So,
get that's trade secrets.
Oh no, we're gonna give one of them because it's swearing again.
Yeah, give a shit.
Yes,
give a shit.
Give a shit. So that is all about caring. You know, caring for you, caring for your colleagues, caring for the team you work with, being passionate about something. Outside of work, being passionate about something.
How do you reinforce these? Because I can imagine for like someone, either coming from a traditional environment, I've had other, guests on, founders who spoke about their values, and they certainly don't have quite the sort of colorful language that you guys are bringing to this. But is that sort of just, and how you hire has to, do you talk about this in this type of way? And I suppose it either rules people in or it rules them out, right? Either they want to be in that or they don't. Is that what you found as well?
Yeah, it's difficult because when they come, it's always that sort of thing. But people want a job, so they'll just agree to anything. Not agree to anything. I don't mean that, but they'll just accept anything. But it's definitely not for everyone. It's certainly for a few people. Some people just can't. We've had people in that are kind of shell shocked in a way about, and a bit lost at times. Not too sure how to move things forward. But I think that's maybe just a hangover from businesses that are structured in those departmental ways. I mean, we don't have departments. We have, it's very gamey how we set it all up. We have missions and challenges, and we have teams that come together to form. We'll create a challenge. A team will come together, and they crack on and solve it, or get to solve the problem, and then we park it, create another challenge, all that sort of stuff. So it's not very departmentalized at all. And it can be really chaotic and confusing and annoying, I would imagine, just coming in. But I think it's a bit like maybe snowboarding. It takes, the first week of snowboarding is a disaster. And then once you're over it, it becomes much easier and smoother. I think it could be kind of like that.
Yeah, that's an interesting note. So I want to just double click on that for a moment. So you have missions and like challenges. So this is more like a sort of a D&D type environment where you have and where does that come from? Is that something you guys have sort of been influenced by Agile? Is that sort of from gaming? Where does that methodology for getting stuff done come from?
Yeah, it's a bit of everything really. So a bit of autonomous working. We studied a load of working practices from lots of other people. Spoke to loads of other businesses that are doing something similar, and then we kind of came upon our ways of working, which was all about missions, challenges, who we have in what mission, and we have navigators and drivers, and because we're all going to it's all that sort. So it's all a very sort of different language, but it kind of makes a lot of sense. It's just we've got immediate challenge of we need more people to convert from our landing page. We need to up it by 1%. That's the challenge. So let's create a challenge around that. Who do we need? We need, Dave. We need Eddie. We need Dominic. In we go, and you get in a room and you sort of chat it out about how you're going to tackle the challenge, and off you go.
So you've given me 3. You said there were 5. Can you share the other 2, or are you not?
Yeah, no. We could do that. So the other 2 are if you don't, who the fuck will? So that's just about, look, we're a startup. We don't have layers of responsibility. People that you have to roll up your sleeves, and I think I'm confident to say there is nothing in the business that any of us are somehow too important to do. You just get on and do it, and that, I think that variety is good for everyone. But if you see a problem, don't just ignore it, deal with it. And whether you can't deal with it yourself, take it somewhere. It's that sense of ownership, which we think is really important. And the final one, which, I guess we do recognise is, to my mind, it's probably the most important thing, certainly having seen various cultures and different businesses, is people over business. Because fundamentally, we would have no business if we didn't have really highly engaged people. So, we, from a values perspective, if someone, well, they don't even have to ask. If someone needs to do something, they just go and do it.
It's just like the school runs, isn't it? It's
yeah.
Don't miss out on that. Go and do the school runs because it's a magical moment. Just go and do it, and then work can happen around that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's this concept that some people divide their lives into I'm work over here and I've got home life here. Well, our view is, life doesn't work that way, especially these days. It's so you've got to make sure that you actively don't miss out on those important things, and actually those things in our mind are probably more important. Doing the things with the family, because if you do that, you are happier in yourself, you're more content, and you'll do a better job. So. It's logical. It makes sense to make sure that people have, people love the freedoms they have to do exactly, all the important things, and most of those won't be to do with the business, and that's fine, and that's good, and that's enabling, and that's a really important value for us because we get happier, more engaged, and more productive people because of it.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I am known for being a values-based headhunter. So I recruit and I interview based on values as my primary tool when I'm assessing people. And you said it quite interestingly at the beginning of the sort of description that you primarily focus on values. And it strikes me that people seemingly forget this point, is that values are effectively culture, right? And if people believe in culture enough, you create a cultural environment for them which they truly feel they can be themselves. They can go to the school run. They can become to work fully authentic as they are, dress as they want, share their sexual preferences, share their sense of humor, all of the things that make us fully people. They have an environment, a culture in which they can be that person. They will fight to make that, to keep that alive. That is motivation in action. We will, and I suppose that what enables companies to thrive ultimately, because it allows you to keep really good people. It allows you to have long-term relationships. That's certainly what I believe. I wonder if what I've just said you think is absolute crap, or if that's effectively what you're seeing as well.
Andy, I think we should hire him.
Yeah. No, I think that's spot on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think more companies can start to do this. Take the bland out of it, make it more, make the working environment more authentic. I think more and more firms are recognizing this. And interestingly, I think in the insurtech scene is that you have to compete against the massive firms who have much more clout, much more financial muscle, maybe can offer more benefits and such. You've got to compete where you can compete, and that's by creating really wonderful environments for a certain type of person, and that sort of is a meta concept for the customers that you're serving as well, by creating a really clear experience what they want.
It is interesting because we get a lot of stuff on, a fair amount of hate on Facebook. Well, actually, it's less and less these days, but a lot of times we're told we're unprofessional, and it. To be able to wear what you want to work and to take time off whenever you want, is that unprofessional? Just because we don't wear a tie, is that how it's defined?
Yes, there's a lovely phrase that we've stolen transparently from another business, which just describes that beautifully. Suits don't make you smart. And that's the essence of it. Just I think the word you used, William, is authentic, and that's what we want people to be able to be themselves.
Authentic, yeah.
People often ask, as you often do, and casually, no idea what I do, and people ask what I do. What's my job? What do I do? And I often describe my role is I'm just simply an enabler. My role is to allow people to do their very best work.
I thought you were going to say, I am the Lime Knight.
Oh, no. Can't believe you let that one out of the bag. Keep the alter ego under wraps. but apart from my superhero status, yes. That's how I see my role, is because that for me is the job of management, for example. It's not to manage people, it's to enable people and to allow them to do their best work, and whatever that takes is what we should strive to do.
And I think this is really nice to talk about well-being, because I know you were sort of kind enough, Andy, brave enough to share your own experience there at the beginning of our call about, why you even thought about buying life insurance and your own history of depression, which we have to fight to break down these taboos, by the way, about talking about this. But it certainly has become much more apparent in pandemic time, where, mental health has been obviously much more on the surface for leaders and companies, because it's just been there, right? And so I wonder, with this sort of, strong culture, this authenticity, this sort of, I hear in you guys, kind of being able to say what you feel and be a little bit more risky, but authentic, how that's helped you maintain the well-being of yourselves and also the team. Has that enabled sort of you to sort of bridge that gap between work and life? And just your thoughts on that and how you've responded to the pandemic, and if you've observed that at all.
I think one of the interesting things we do with the teams is when we have check-ins, they're about feelings. So it's not what have you done or what are you doing, it's how are you feeling about the challenge. And it's from that we get the most interesting information out. So it's usually when you say something, yes, I've done X, Y, and Z, but I haven't done whatever because of this. You don't really get a clear picture of what's going on. But if you ask someone how they're feeling about it, it makes a hell of a difference. So the feeling part's quite important. And it sounds a bit airy-fairy, but it is. How people feel about what they're doing is really important.
And I think our response to the pandemic and people, having to forced to work from home in sometimes very difficult circumstances. Everyone is well aware, people with young children in confined spaces, trying to work and trying to homeschool, and it's a nightmare. So, I'm sure we didn't get it right all the time, but we just recognised that that's going to impact people massively, and you've got to account for it. So don't just pretend it isn't there. Do what we can to help them with that. We did, and a lot of this comes from our general genius, who she's tasked with all sorts of things, but a lot of it people related. And so she'd send little sort of, I suppose you call them welfare packages. Every week there'd be some surprise that would come, from the bizarre to the ridiculous, just as a reminder to everyone that hope you're doing all right. Obviously we don't have the same human contact as we do. I hope you're doing all right, and here's something hopefully to bring a smile to your face. And it's that.
Can you share what some of those were? I'm intrigued. What was in some of those, please? I've got a feeling they're going to be weird and wonderful. So yeah.
There was
Andy,
really
come on, you're
weird
smiling.
ones.
You want to tell me what?
It's a jigsaw of Phil.
Oh, there was. I kid you not. It was the most mortifying thing ever. I'm sure that would have plunged everyone into further mental health issues. But
jigsaw of filth.
Yeah. Needless to say, that was his idea.
So was that a rather spicy jigsaw that when was put together?
It was just a very dull, boring picture of me in the office. One, I don't know. Yes, that was one of our clearly less successful.
We had lots of pizza making kit for the meal that night, and
cocktail stuff,
kits and all sorts of stuff like that.
That's some wellness stuff.
A jigsaw of Phil, a cocktail kit. What was the other one?
Pizza
making kit. Yeah, that's really nice.
Yeah, chocolate with a message on it, or chocolates. I think probably that featured a few times. Loads of different things, actually. Yeah, amazing how often, number of different things that Lauren came up with. It was fantastic.
So I just wanted to ask you particularly about any of the sort of the influences you've had in how you've created the culture, because I always like to ask guests like 3 books that they really have influenced their journey to where you are right now, or someone who influences you. So I'll let you take that anyway. Either you've got some books that you'd like to share with us, or some key people that have influenced you.
You presumed I can read.
I did. I did, absolutely. But, picture books are also fine for me. So, that's okay. Yeah. Comics, anything like that.
I actually really struggled with the question because I don't tend to have top things of anything. It's sort of like, what's your favorite movie? What's your favorite this? I can't think of one. There isn't one. So I'm not too sure I could answer the question.
Yeah, I'm not a great reader of, business books. I'm aware of a few, but I find them generally very, they manage to eke out a 200-page book with 1 or 2 ideas, and I find that quite frustrating, bluntly. But actually, I was reflecting on the question, and I think if I think about literature and what inspires me, there are several, just almost biopics, things where they describe, and it may well be fictional and it may be real, where you see someone's whole life story and you see, this is a long journey. And we're often caught up in the moment, but it takes, if you look at these, examples caught in literature about actually you just to step back and think about the long picture, think about the big picture. And that moment in time really defines you. And I find that really actually helpful and inspiring. So whether that be, the big classics of like, the real Mandela's Long Walk to Freedom, that whole story is extraordinary. Of course it is, and you'd never have believed the outcome at the beginning of that. But look how, life is a strange old place. If you want a sort of a fictional route, for me, A Town Like Alice, Nevil Shute. Again, it's an extraordinary story. Again, you'd never see the end at the start of that book. Both beautiful stories, and I think that's a great reminder that we live in the moment. We think about what's happening today and tomorrow, but actually, just remember that hopefully we're going to be around for a little while, and an awful lot can happen, some of it in your control and some of it not, and just be and influence as far as you can. But I do find those are the things that really inspire me.
Thank you for sharing those. Well, gentlemen, I just want to say thank you for coming on the show and sharing all of your experiences. It's been a wide-ranging conversation. I've really enjoyed it. For those out there listening, DeadHappy, where can they find you if they want to come and see some of this really interesting product that you've created and messaging? How can they find you? DeadHappy.com, right? But if they want to reach you on social media, do you do that? And is there anything else you recommend?
Oh, yes. All the usual channels apply.
Just stick DeadHappy on the end. Yeah.
Okay.
Whether it be Twitter or Facebook or all the usual things, and just come and have a play and come and make a death wish. It's it's completely free to do. Just come and start thinking about it. And we haven't touched on it. Our bigger purpose, changing attitude to death. It's all about getting people just to spend a moment thinking about what's an inevitable thing. And we think a death wish, making a death wish or two, is a great place to start, and it's free.
Wonderful. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much again for coming on and sharing your experiences. And I'll look forward to following the journey.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot, William.
Cheers.